Why is the press and the palace refusing to look or comment or report on Meghan Markle's links? Will it take something to be exposed that is so terrible that they will actually talk about it? The pictures are there.
This is sweet. Meghan Markle said she has a finger they can use if they need it.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time? There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew.
Most of Meghan Markle's yacht girl pics have been scrubbed from the internet, but I did manage to find a few. This is essentially a compilation of what still exists on the internet of Meghan Markle as a yacht girl.
Can you just tell them the truth? Can you say to the world, just tell people and then they'll understand?
There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s. Wow.
Or participated or been around whatever he was doing. Why isn't the press calling this out? I'm asking you.
President Trump also announced a new trade deal with the UK that will reopen British markets for American companies.
Seems like that lady is a temptress. She's a siren. She's lured him into the rocks.
All that Britain demands in return is that we keep these two.
No! No! I refuse! I'm sick of it! No, I don't want them. No, I don't want them. It's just, they are so ridiculed all over the place.
One joke. That's all it took. Colin Jost stood on the biggest comedy stage in America, stared into the camera, and said the thing that royal reporters and palace insiders had been carefully avoiding for years. The audience went silent first, that half second where a room decides whether to laugh or gasp, and then they lost it. And within minutes, something cracked open online that no PR team and no Archwell statement was going to put back together. Because a joke only lands that hard when everyone in the room already suspects it's true.
Has been arrested and now may be banned from ever taking the throne. The royal family said the only way he can become king is if it comes down to either him or Meghan.
What do I authentically, organically want to share? So authentically, I go back to the authenticity, right?
This is huge. Harry and Meghan are leaving the palace to become financially independent.
This wasn't a tabloid. It wasn't an anonymous palace source. This was Saturday Night Live, the show that has been burying reputations for 50 years. And on this particular night, the target was the Duchess of Sussex. Jost framed it around the US-UK trade deal.
Trade deal with the UK that will reopen British markets for American companies. All that Britain demands in return is that we keep these two.
The crowd paused for exactly the amount of time it takes a room to process something that feels real, and then the wave hit. Within hours, it was everywhere. Royal watchers in the UK and audiences across America weren't just sharing it because it was funny. They were sharing it because it felt like permission. And that's what broke Meghan's playbook. You can sue a tabloid, you can dismiss a palace source, but you cannot release a statement that makes a joke unfunny.
Show you, and we're going to talk about why they are keeping quiet about this. Is the palace behind this cover-up?
Right? It's what I love and it's what I want to share. But also to be authentic, my authentic self.
Once a crowd laughs, that feeling is already in the room. Her team understood that immediately, and they did the one thing that, in hindsight, made everything worse. They said nothing. No Archwell statement, no Instagram caption, just silence.
Finally, new rule: if Meghan and Harry can quit their family, you can too.
We agree. Meghan Markle, less popular than Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
Yes, that's what they were saying, Dan.
And in that silence, something else was already moving, something older and far harder to laugh off. It started with a photograph. The photos didn't arrive with a headline or a byline. They just appeared, the way the most dangerous things online always do, quietly at first, and then all at once. A sun-soaked yacht, somewhere off a glittering European coast, powerful men in designer shades, champagne in hand, private staff in the background, and in the center of it all, a woman, laughing like she didn't have a single thing to hide. The image quality was grainy, but the framing was strangely perfect. Too well lit to feel accidental, too composed to feel candid. Reddit went first, then TikTok, then X exploded.
Look, she was on Deal or No Deal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, with a briefcase.
She didn't like being objectified on Deal. And did you think it was an executive position, ma'am?
I brought Meghan Markle, whatever her name is, to my my Deal or No Deal celebrity golf tournament. She was one of my Deal or No Deal girls that were, she was a caddy for all of my celebrities.
Armchair detectives pulled out everything they had: timestamps, wrist tattoos, jawline angles, the curve of a smile. Threads ran to hundreds of comments within the hour. People were zooming into pixels, cross-referencing old photos, building timelines with the kind of focus usually reserved for actual investigations. And the verdict came fast and loud. That's her, no question.
Yes, this little SNL skit, though, is just this weekend update is hysterical because it's so true, and this is what works about comedy.
Now, it's worth saying clearly, no one has proven these photos are Meghan Markle. Her team has never confirmed them, and there has been no official verification from any credible source. But here's the thing that made the internet impossible to slow down. It wasn't really about proof. It was about timing, because these images didn't drop during some quiet news week. They landed right in the middle of her rebrand push, right as she was rolling out her as-ever lifestyle products, teasing new content, and working hard to steer her story back toward the warm, aspirational version she's always preferred.
I've never looked up my husband online.
What? Let me introduce this thing called Google, okay?
The photos hit like a bucket of cold water on a carefully lit candle, and what really poured fuel on the fire wasn't even the images themselves. It was the era they reportedly came from. Online sleuths began cross-referencing the details and pointing to one conclusion: that these weren't old college photos from some carefree summer. The timeline, according to the people doing the digging, placed them squarely in her Suits years, the exact period when Meghan was building her public identity brick by brick. The wellness blogger, the polished professional. That was the image she was selling to the world.
It was so bad the Duchess said she was at the breaking point.
I went to one of the most senior people just to get help.
And suddenly, there was a very different image sitting right beside it. That contrast didn't just raise questions about a few old photos, it raised questions about the entire story she had told. And the story was about to get considerably harder to hold together. Here's the part that nobody in the mainstream press wanted to touch. Because the photos were one thing. Grainy images on Reddit can be dismissed. TikTok threads can be called misogynistic. Anonymous forum posts can be written off as conspiracy.
Markle sounds so artificial.
Do not trust this woman. You should not trust Meghan Markle.
This is all a stage. You know, this is all just Meghan Markle's stage. We're expected to buy.
I believe in myself. My faith is greater than my fear.
But what the internet started pulling together after the photos dropped wasn't a feeling or a guess. It was a timeline. And timelines are harder to argue with. The TIG launched in 2014. For those who don't know, that was Meghan's lifestyle blog, her first real attempt at building a personal brand. She wrote about travel and food and self-growth and the kind of curated, aspirational living that would later become the entire foundation of everything she tried to sell the world. The woman who knew exactly who she was and exactly where she was going. That was the Meghan the blog presented, and that was the Meghan that eventually caught the attention of a certain British prince.
If you could rewrite your public narrative from scratch, is there anything that you would do differently?
Yes, I would ask people to tell the truth. Yes, I would ask people to tell the truth.
But here is where the timeline gets uncomfortable. The TIG years and the Suits years overlapped almost perfectly with the period online investigators were pointing to when they dated those yacht photos. Which means, if the internet's reconstruction is even partially right, Meghan wasn't just building her brand during those years. She was building two very different versions of herself at exactly the same time. One for public consumption, one that apparently stayed off the blog.
The truth is that you're a jerk. What an idiotic reaction to that.
She suffers from such a rare disorder of being unable to just be a human.
I would ask people to tell the truth. Still blaming other people.
Everything is always somebody.
And that is a much bigger problem than a few old photographs, because Meghan's entire value as a public figure has always rested on authenticity. The outsider who kept it real, the woman who didn't fit the royal mold because she was too honest, too modern, too herself. That was the product. That was what made the Oprah interview land so hard, what made her supporters defend her so fiercely, what made the story of a self-made woman marrying into the monarchy feel genuinely compelling rather than just convenient. Authenticity was the foundation everything else was built on. Pull that out, and the whole structure shifts.
What do I authentically, organically want to share? So authentically, I go back to the authenticity.
What the internet was now circling wasn't just a scandal about yachts or rich men or old photos from a decade ago. It was a question about the most fundamental thing Meghan Markle ever sold to the public. The idea that what you saw was what you got, that the blog and the interviews and the carefully chosen words in every appearance represented something real.
Been on this grind. Oh my gosh, I work so hard, and I appreciate what hard work looks like. I like working hard, and I'm still working hard. And I've always been a hard worker.
Because if the timeline holds, and her team's continued silence certainly hasn't helped argue otherwise, then the most powerful part of her brand was always the most carefully constructed part of all. And that was only the beginning of what was unraveling. While the internet was still dissecting old photographs, something far more concrete was falling apart in real time, something with receipts, something with numbers attached. Because you can debate a grainy yacht photo forever, but you cannot debate a Netflix data dump.
Delight in being able to be a present parent. And it's a luxury sometimes because we all have to work. We all have a lot of stuff to do.
Here is what actually happened. The $75 million deal that was supposed to fund the entire Sussex reinvention, the one that looked like the smartest move in the world when they signed it fresh off Megxit in 2020, had been quietly bleeding out for months before anyone said it publicly. With Love Meghan, the cooking show that was meant to anchor her lifestyle brand and prove she could hold an audience on her own terms, pulled just 2 million views in its entire second season, not per episode, total. For context, that placed it so low on Netflix's viewership rank.
So yes, 10 years and a night.
Yeah.
But to the world, it's just, what has she been doing? Does she work? As opposed to, oh my gosh, I work so hard and
It didn't even crack the platform's top 1,000 shows for the second half of 2025. A holiday special she released around the same time did marginally better, pulling 2.4 million views. For a woman who had positioned herself as one of the most compelling figures in modern pop culture, those numbers were quietly devastating.
Where things were different with me, of course, is that very, very different.
It's very different.
Yeah, then when I am at a different end, that takes it to a complete.
But the number that really told the story wasn't in any press release. It was a small, easy-to-miss social media action that landed louder than any official announcement. Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, the man who had personally championed the Sussex deal and even lent him his Santa Barbara guest house while their Montecito mansion was being renovated, quietly unfollowed Meghan's personal Instagram account. Then he unfollowed the As Ever brand account. No statement, no explanation, just gone. In Hollywood, that is not a coincidence. That is a message. The official split came on March 6th, 2026, dressed up in the kind of warm corporate language both sides use when they want to pretend a breakup was always the plan. Netflix said they looked forward to celebrating her continued efforts. Meghan's team said As Ever had experienced meaningful growth and was ready to stand on its own. What neither statement mentioned was that Netflix staff had reportedly been offered unsold As Ever jam stock for free because there was simply too much of it sitting in storage.
Stupid-ass lifestyle brand with jam.
With jam that is inedible, truly. If you when you open the jar, it's just there's no center to it.
The fairy tale partnership that was supposed to change both their lives had ended with surplus jam and a quietly unfollowed Instagram account. The rebrand wasn't just stalling, it had already hit the wall. And at home in Montecito, the financial reality of what that meant was just starting to come into focus. This is where the story stops being about PR and starts being about real life. Because while Meghan was publicly projecting confidence, posting about As Ever, talking about meaningful growth and exciting chapters ahead, a very different picture was forming behind the gates of that $14 million Montecito estate. And it was not the picture of two people thriving on their own terms.
So it's and the packaging you were showing me is very cheap. It's extremely cheap.
It was the picture of two people quietly running out of runway. Insiders, speaking to Star magazine, put the number plainly. The Sussex lifestyle costs roughly $6 million a year just to maintain. That covers the mortgage and interest payments on the 7.4-acre property, a security bill that reportedly sits around $3 million annually on its own, and the staffing costs of running a household at that level. $6 million a year before either of them has spent a single dollar on anything else. And the contracts that were supposed to cover that, the Netflix deal, the Spotify deal that collapsed before it even found its footing, the speaking engagements and brand partnerships that came with being the world's most talked about couple, those income streams had either dried up or shrunk to a fraction of what they once were.
Fun. Amazing, right?
Yes.
And so easy. It's always easy to do. It's really easy to do.
What made it more uncomfortable was where that left Harry, because while Meghan was pushing forward with as ever, positioning herself as the entrepreneur, chasing the next product launch and the next brand alignment, Harry was reportedly doing something much quieter. He was staying home. Insiders described him as adrift, spending more time alone in Montecito, stepping back from joint strategy conversations, growing more distant from the version of their shared future they had both signed up for when they walked away from the palace in 2020. One profile described him as a man trying to figure out who he is without the institution he spent his whole life trying to escape. That is not a description of someone thriving. And here is the contradiction that the internet latched onto hardest. This was the couple who left the most famous family in the world in the name of freedom and authenticity. They gave up titles, security, generational privilege, and a support system that, whatever its flaws, never would have let them drown financially. They traded all of that for independence. And independence, it turned out, cost exactly $6 million a year, came with a surplus jam problem, and left one of them quietly sitting at home while the other fought to keep the brand alive. The United Sussex Front that once shook the monarchy was starting to look like something held together with a lifestyle label and a prayer. Then Trump opened his mouth, and everything got louder. It started with a simple question from a New York Post reporter asking the President of the United States whether he planned to deport Prince Harry, who had been under pressure over immigration questions linked to drug admissions in his memoir Spare. Trump's answer was short and surgically precise. I don't want to do that. I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife. She's terrible. 4 sentences, 11 words about Meghan specifically, and within the hour, it was the top trending topic on both sides of the Atlantic. Now, consider what that moment actually represented. This was not a tabloid editor with an agenda. This was not a bitter palace courtier leaking to a friendly journalist. This was the sitting president of the United States in an on-record conversation, publicly expressing contempt for Meghan Markle by name, while simultaneously expressing sympathy for her husband. He didn't attack Harry, he pitied him. And that distinction landed harder than any direct insult could have, because pity implies the situation is already beyond saving.
President Trump also announced a new trade deal with the UK that will reopen British markets for American companies. All that Britain demands in return.
Then came the SNL bit that twisted the knife further. The joke framed Meghan as a bargaining chip in the US-UK trade deal, the thing Britain supposedly wanted back in exchange for opening their markets to American companies. The crowd erupted. And what made it devastating wasn't just the punchline. It was the fact that it followed Trump's comments only a few months later. When the American president and America's most watched live comedy show are making the same joke about you in the same news cycle, you are no longer a misunderstood outsider being targeted by a biased press. You have become a shared cultural reference point for failure. Her supporters tried to reframe it as misogyny, as racism, as the establishment doing what it always does to powerful women who refuse to be quiet. And to be fair, some of that criticism has always had real weight behind it. But this time, the defense didn't stick the way it used to, because the people laughing weren't just conservative commentators or bitter royal traditionalists. They were the same American late-night audiences that Meghan had spent years cultivating as her base. The people who were supposed to be on her side. The ones she had built her entire post-royal identity around impressing. When you lose that room, you don't lose a news cycle. You lose something much harder to get back. And what was coming next was going to make losing a room feel like the easy part. This is where it all lands. Not with a single explosive revelation, but with something quieter and more permanent. moment. The slow, public dismantling of a story that took 15 years to build. Think about the arc for a second. Meghan Markle started as a briefcase girl on Deal or No Deal. She built herself into a working actress on a mid-tier legal drama. She launched a lifestyle blog that positioned her as someone with taste and ambition and a carefully cultivated sense of self. She married into the most famous family on the planet, survived the institution, walked away from it on her own terms, landed a $75 million Netflix deal, sat across from Oprah, and told the world her truth. That is an extraordinary run. Whatever you think of her, the climb was real, and the execution was sharp. For a long time, the brand worked because the story worked. But brands built on a single idea are only as strong as that idea holds. And Meghan's idea, the whole load-bearing wall of everything she ever sold, was that she was authentic, that the woman in the interview was the same woman in the room, that the blog and the speeches and the carefully worded revelations all pointed back to something genuine. The moment that idea started cracking, everything built on top of it became unstable. Hollywood noticed first, the way Hollywood always does. Whispers moved through industry circles about projects being reconsidered and brand partnerships being quietly paused, not because of the yacht photos specifically, but because she had started to look unpredictable and hard to manage. In an industry where image is the actual currency, uncertain stock doesn't get bought, it gets weighted out. Then, the internet did what the internet does best. It started pulling old receipts. Clips resurfaced, timelines got reconstructed. Every carefully managed interview got re-examined through the lens of what people now suspected, rather than what they had previously chosen to believe. And for royal watchers across the UK and viewers across America who had followed every twist of the story for nearly a decade, something shifted that is very difficult to shift back. Not anger exactly, something colder than anger. The particular feeling you get when a story you half believed finally stops adding up. Meghan Markle is not finished. She is too sharp and too driven for anyone to write that ending yet. But the version of her that existed before that SNL joke, the untouchable, carefully protected, always-on-brand Duchess, that version is gone, and the silence that followed the joke is still the loudest thing she has said in months. Drop a comment. One word. Guilty or misunderstood? That's all I need. I am Jane Exposé, my beautiful people. I showed up, I delivered, and the next Meghan drama is already loading. Don't you dare miss it.